The Galactic Academy's survival examination had claimed the pride of countless species over the past millennium. Located on Kepler 442c, a desolate moon with unpredictable weather patterns and hostile fauna, the test was simple in concept yet brutal in execution. Survive 72 standard hours with nothing but basic tools and the knowledge crammed into one's skull during academy training. Instructor Vexathala, a 7-foot-tall Centaurian with chitinous plates covering her elongated frame, observed the latest batch of cadets through her monitoring station. Representatives from 12 different species had been dropped across the moon's surface, each in isolated zones designed to test their individual capabilities. Most would build simple shelters, forage for sustenance, and endure until extraction. The Aquarian would likely find a water source and remain submerged. The crystalline Vorthak would probably absorb solar radiation while remaining motionless, standard survival protocol. But then there was the human. Cadet Marcus Chen had been dropped in Sector 7, arguably the most challenging zone due to its proximity to a pack of razor wolves and an active volcanic fissure that spewed toxic gases intermittently. Vexathala had initially felt a twinge of sympathy for the soft-skinned biped. Humans were a recent addition to the Academy, their species having achieved faster-than-light travel only decades ago. They were considered primitive by galactic standards. No natural armor, no enhanced sensory organs, no ability to photosynthesize or enter hibernation states. What they lacked in biological advantages, however, they seemed to compensate for with an almost pathological refusal to accept limitations. 6 hours into the examination, while other cadets were still securing basic shelter, Marcus had already constructed what could only be described as an architectural marvel. Using fallen volcanic rock, twisted metal debris from ancient crash sites, and a peculiar organic cement he'd synthesized from local moss and mineral deposits, the human had erected a structure that rose nearly 15 feet into the air. "What in the 7 moons is he doing?" muttered Instructor Gorth, a massive Ursinian whose own species was renowned for their engineering prowess. Vexathala adjusted her bioscanners, focusing on the human's vital signs. His heart rate was elevated but steady, his neural activity showed intense concentration, and his endorphin level suggested he was actually enjoying himself. This was deeply concerning. By the 12-hour mark, Marcus's creation had evolved beyond shelter into something resembling a fortress. He'd constructed multiple levels, complete with crude but effective ventilation systems that filtered out the volcanic gases. The structure featured observation points, defensive positions, and what appeared to be a sophisticated water collection and purification system built into the walls. "Sir," reported Junior Instructor Cleth, his tentacles quivering with agitation, "the human has begun expanding outward. He's building, I believe the term is infrastructure." Indeed, Marcus had started construction on what could only be described as satellite installations. Small outposts connected to his main fortress by covered walkways, each serving a specific purpose. One housed his food processing area, where he'd managed to create a surprisingly effective hydroponic garden using local soil and organic waste. Another served as a workshop where he was crafting increasingly sophisticated tools from salvaged materials. "This isn't survival," Vexathala observed, her mandibles clicking in bewilderment. "This is colonization." The truly alarming development came during Hour 18. Marcus had somehow managed to domesticate 3 of the local razor wolves. The pack predators, known for their aggression and pack hunting tactics, were now serving as sentries around his expanding compound. Video footage showed the human sharing processed food with the creatures, while somehow communicating with them through a combination of gestures and vocalizations he'd apparently improvised. "How is this possible?" demanded Instructor Gorth. "Razor wolves have never shown domestication potential. Our xenobiologists classified them as irredeemably hostile." "Perhaps," Vexathala said slowly, "our xenobiologists never tried feeding them properly prepared meals, while treating them as potential allies rather than threats." By Hour 36, other cadets had begun to take notice of the massive construction project rising in Sector 7. Several had attempted to investigate, only to find themselves facing an impressive defensive network. Marcus had somehow convinced 2 other struggling cadets, a Tellurian engineer and an Aqualian farmer, to join his settlement in exchange for shelter and protection. The human's compound now boasted multiple structures: sustainable food production, a defensive perimeter patrolled by domesticated predators, and what appeared to be the beginnings of a primitive but functional communication array built from salvaged electronics. "He's not just surviving," reported Cleth, his voice filled with something approaching awe. "He's thriving. His settlement is more advanced than some established colonial outposts." When the 72-hour mark arrived, extraction teams were dispatched across the moon to collect the surviving cadets. Most emerged exhausted, dehydrated, and eager to return to civilization. Several had to be treated for exposure and malnutrition. The extraction team assigned to Sector 7 found themselves facing an unexpected situation. Marcus Chen stood atop his fortress walls, flanked by his Razor Wolf companions and his 2 alien partners. Behind him, smoke rose from cooking fires and the sounds of a functioning settlement drifted across the volcanic landscape. "Cadet Chen," announced the extraction team leader through his communicator. "The examination period has concluded. Please prepare for immediate departure." Marcus cupped his hands around his mouth and shouted back, "Actually, sir, we've got a pretty good thing going here. The others and I were wondering if we could file a formal colonization claim instead." The silence that followed was deafening. Later, in the Academy's administrative offices, Director Zephyr reviewed the examination footage for the 5th time. The ethereal's form flickered between dimensions as his consciousness struggled to process what he'd witnessed. "Instructor Vexthala," he said finally. "In your professional opinion, did Cadet Chen pass or fail the survival examination?" The Zentorian considered the question carefully. "Sir, I believe we may need to create an entirely new category of assessment. The human didn't just survive, he created a sustainable civilization from nothing in less than 3 standard days." Director Zephyr's form solidified as he reached a decision. "Make a note in his file. Survival test completed with excessive efficiency. Recommend immediate advancement to Colonial Administration track. Also recommend updating examination protocols to account for human enthusiasm." As Marcus Chen was finally convinced to leave his fortress for extraction, he turned back one last time to survey his creation. His Razor Wolf companions had been relocated to a sanctuary. His alien partners had accepted positions in the Academy's engineering corps, and his settlement would be studied by xeno-architects for decades to come. "Not bad for a primitive species," he murmured to himself, already planning improvements for next time.